Listen, I know the new atheists made it extremely cringe to say God isn't real, but if some religious type is using their belief in a God to justify attacking abortion or minority rights or whatever, it's okay. You get a pass then. Let's bring atheism back to YouTube. I'm gonna turn this ship around. We can all pretend to sip whiskey and talk about banana shapes again, like the old days. The ship doesn't need turning around. We've turned it around. It's way better now. It's so odd to me when I hear people say that atheism needs to be brought back to YouTube, because it never actually left. It is different than it used to be, but it's still atheism, and it's still here. That said, I do understand why Sean says that the new atheists made atheist talking points cringe. I'll get into that, but let me clarify something first. The term new atheism or new atheist is not a term that atheists invented for themselves. It was created by journalists to describe the movement of highly vocal atheists that arose alongside the popularity of Richard Dawkins, Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, and Daniel Dennett in the mid to late 2000s. The term has been used to disparage atheists at times by lumping all atheists together into an imagined monolithic cult-like group. Who was it then that Sean and I think made atheist talking points cringe to so many people? I think this Twitter user got it right. Going through the responses to the original tweet, I get the feeling that many are confusing atheism and anti-theism. I consider myself an atheist, and in my conversations with others about religion, I'm not trying to burn down their worldview, but rather help them understand mine. Yeah, when Sean and many others say new atheism, I think they're referring to anti-theism, a position that rose in popularity primarily due to the influence of Christopher Hitchens and Richard Dawkins. Anti-theism can be defined as opposition to theism and/or the belief that theism or religion is inherently harmful. Most or all anti-theists are atheists, but not all atheists are anti-theists. Many who don't identify as atheists don't distinguish between those two positions, though, so the reputation of atheism within our culture is tied to that of anti-theism. There are some understandable reasons that anti-theism has a poor reputation. In the mid-2010s, several anti-theists on social media, perhaps especially on YouTube, began producing anti-social justice warrior content. While they often identified as liberals who just wanted to scrutinize bad ideas on the left, their audiences fed and some eventually merged with alt-right communities. Turns out when you build an audience of young white men who are struggling with the loss of identity after leaving their parents' religion, then feed them reactionary content full of disparaging language against women, queer people, and people of color, you create right-wing extremists. Yeah, it's definitely worse than just cringe. Even certain anti-theists who didn't feed the alt-right added to the cringe, though. Anti-theists historically have been rather committed to essentialist ideas about religion. They might criticize bigoted religious systems like fundamentalist Christianity and Islam, then make statements against religion as a whole, speaking as if all religion boils down to the same essence of social intolerance informed by blind faith in scripture and scientific illiteracy informed by mythic literalism.
There is a logical progression that goes from believing in faith, having faith that your God tells you to do something, and doing terrible deeds, like suicide bombing, like flying planes into skyscrapers. The vast majority of people of faith don't do such terrible things. But those people who do terrible things do it believing that they are righteous and good, and they think that they're doing the will of their God. So they're not evil people, they're actually good people by their own lights. They believe they're doing good things, and that's why religion is evil, because it can make you do evil things, believing that they are good.
They might also support their position by arguing that false beliefs, like any of those based in religion, have the potential to poorly inform behavior. Poorly informed behavior can be harmful, therefore religious beliefs always carry an unacceptable risk of causing harm. As a result of this essentialism, anti-theists earned a reputation for attacking any religious belief as if it was as detestable as fundamentalist extremism. After several years of Hitchens and Dawkins fans scolding peaceful religious moderates for the yet-to-be-seen predations of their beliefs, anti-theism and so-called new atheism came to be seen as incredibly cringe. And don't get me wrong, there are people who identify as anti-theists who are more religiously literate and less needlessly combative than those I've just described. They just, unfortunately, do not appear to be the majority. If you've been following my channel for several years now, you know that I actually started out on YouTube as an anti-theist. I used to think that it was both possible and preferable that all religion be abandoned, and I relied on the argument I mentioned earlier, that religious beliefs always carry an unacceptable risk of causing harm because they are wrong. By 2020, I changed my mind about that. A polytheist friend, Ocean Keltoy, helped me see that even true beliefs could be misapplied and poorly informed behavior, and that if I was as committed to empiricism in these matters as I claimed, I should be able to demonstrate how harm arises from every seemingly innocuous religious belief which I claimed was harmful. I could not do that. I also read The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt, which persuaded me that religion can definitely cause harm, but can also promote healthy pro-social behavior. So today, I'd call myself a pluralist rather than an anti-theist. I have no problem with atheists explaining why they think religious ideas are wrong, even if those ideas themselves are innocuous. But I don't think homogeneity on religious issues is so preferable or inherently good that one view should be socially or politically enforced. However, I still think there is utility in criticizing and even seeking to destroy certain religious ideas, depending on the context. Let's revisit the tweet that I opened with. Listen, I know the new atheist made it extremely cringe to say God isn't real, but if some religious type is using their belief in a God to justify attacking abortion or minority rights or whatever, it's okay. You get a pass then. I totally agree with Sean here. When a person or institution seeks to dominate society and remove any rights that their religion condemns, all because of their religious views, then it is a moral good to scrutinize and intellectually eviscerate those views. In a tolerant, pluralist society, the basis of intolerance should be attacked. The moment someone's religion extends its grasp beyond the individual and seeks to limit the rights of others, their religion becomes fair game. Now, as I've discussed in these videos, religious belief is primarily based in socially inherited behavior and identity. So the most effective way to dissuade someone of religious ideas is not argument. Unfortunately, though, one can't socially influence everyone who holds harmful ideas based in religion. This is when argument is necessary. This, finally, brings me to Matt Walsh, the perfect example of religious beliefs overextending their grasp. He advocates for gay marriage to be illegal, all abortion to be criminalized, and for nonconformity to traditional gender expression to be eliminated through social and even legal suppression. Usually, he argues for all of this using non-religious rhetoric. There are only two genders, it's basic biology. Gay marriage undermines the traditional family, which weakens our nation as a whole. Abortion violates the rights of babies, etc. What one must understand about Walsh, though, is that these arguments are not the actual reasons he holds to any of his positions. Before working for the DailyWire, Walsh wrote books and spoke in Catholic churches about why Catholics shouldn't shy away from fighting for their views to be legislated. His views are based in Catholicism. For him, abortion and queerness should not be permitted simply because God told him so. Of course, him saying this doesn't reach as many people as it used to because the religious arguments for his positions are laughably weak, and questioning dubious authority figures like the Catholic Church has been normalized. So, Walsh and others like him speak as if there are other reasons they hold to their positions. Unfortunately, this successfully persuades some who don't believe in ancient blood magic to buy into his ideas. In cases like this, we absolutely should bring up, scrutinize, and expose the absurdity of the superstition underlying bigotry.
We've never seen anybody walk on water, but there are so many stories of people who have been changed by God. They've seen the light of God. And so you sort of turn a blind eye to science, right? We're going to need science because it's for our benefit.
We're gonna let someone else ask a few questions.
When a religious zealot like Walsh argues that all deviation from traditional gender ideals is ridiculous delusion or mental illness, therefore should be legislated against, we should point out that the source of his understanding of sex and gender is quite literally an ancient book whose only cited source is supposedly miraculous visions and dreams. This book, by the way, can only be said to even attempt to address modern issues of sex and gender if we assume that it is entirely inspired by supernatural visions and dreams. If we read the text under the realistic assumption that it was written by men discussing issues relevant to their own time, we see it has nothing to say about gender in the 21st century. When these people say that they're just going by the science in determining what gender someone must be or what gender roles someone must fulfill, we should ask them how deep their commitment to science goes. For instance, what scientific evidence supports their belief that saying magic words over a cracker turns it into the literal flesh of a god who came to Earth over 2,000 years ago? When they assert their intellectual superiority because they uphold that woman has an extremely simple and objective definition, ask them about the ultimate authority of their position, the Christian God, an entity whose triune nature is quite literally defined as a mystery by an institution so confident in and defensive of this mystery that it has repeatedly burned those who question it at the stake. It is entirely appropriate to show that theocrats who constantly throw stones of bigotry and dishonest appeals to science shouldn't do so if they want to keep their glass house of religious faith from being shattered. And when they refuse to stop, then with cool rationality and hard evidence, shatter it unapologetically. Now, the approach one should take in doing this should differ depending on the context. When speaking to an individual, I encourage a Socratic approach. Pick a position to discuss and ask your interlocutor's primary reason for believing it. After hearing this reason, ask if they'd still hold the position in question if their primary reason were somehow eliminated. Most people will actually say yes, so repeat this set of questions. When they finally identify a reason that, if eliminated, would significantly affect their belief, discuss that reason. It is a more likely basis for their belief than the first reason they gave. If you're engaging with someone in front of an audience, this approach is much more difficult, so a typical point-counterpoint approach may have to suffice. Remember, though, that one of the major cultural weaknesses of religious skeptics of the recent past was their off-putting, needless condescension and belligerence. If the audience sees that your participation in the debate serves your ego as much as the discourse itself, you'll earn the label of cringe and hurt your own cause. That is the determining factor, after all, for whether or not attempting to destroy faith is justified. Does it primarily serve you and your ego, or rather the rights of others in a pluralistic society? I urge you to consider the difference and keep in mind that pluralism, while not compatible with outright anti-theism, does benefit from the criticism of religious bigotry and the destruction of the superstition in which it's based. Thanks for watching. I've been Drew of Genetically Modified Skeptic. Thank you to the person who anonymously donated this microphone. I so appreciate it. Thank you for massively boosting my audio quality. A special thanks to my patrons for their constant love and support. If you want to hear more from me, then subscribe. As always, if you are an apostate in need, there are resources linked in the description to help you find community and mental health support. Remember to be kind to others in the comments, and until next time, stay skeptical.